Welcome to BTFDtv. My name is Jack Barnes, and this is the Macro Tourist Hour. This is half an hour on Sundays, hour some days, where Uncle Bob and I get together and we talk about the global implications of what's happening around us. And as tourists, we will comment on any topic. So at this point, if you've seen any of the prior episodes, you know this is where I turn to my co-host, Uncle Bob, and usually he has something really boring and drying to tell us about the politics in D.C. Oh, I'm still screwing up, Uncle Bob. I just heard us on air. So what's happening in D.C. besides the fact that I don't know how to run a show after 4 years?
Well, you know, the big thing was Ferguson, which I really don't have much to comment on it at this stage. But it is what it is. And that kind of buried the lead for the federal government, and that was the departure of Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, former senator, who apparently was doing nothing, was not part of the inner team, and was summarily dismissed for a variety of circumstances. But one notable thing there was in his farewell, well, a couple things. Senator Joe Biden, who really advocated on his behalf, was extraordinarily downtrodden. I mean, strangely so. But Joe, as you well know, in my opinion, isn't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Hey, I don't know if you're going to keep shoveling that. Did you hear that he basically threw the president under the bus? He was not amused with, quote-unquote, how Hagel was treated.
Who, Biden?
Yeah. Well, our VP,
yeah.
Whoever that is.
Yeah. Jersey Joe Biden. Wow, I'll tell you about his law school career.
I was going to say, is it time for the law school statement yet?
Yeah, right now. We'll just move on from there. Now, the next most interesting thing of the week, I thought, from a Washington perspective, was Chuck Schumer, who is essentially the number two, number three within the Democratic leadership in the Senate, came out to the National Press Club and said, we really screwed up by pushing health care when we did. And I mean, I thought that was utterly fascinating. It got some press, but I thought relatively little.
My sister's a bleeding heart Democrat for life, and she is spitting mad about Obamacare, which, by the way, she, on her own dollars, traveled across the U.S. and was supporting it and bringing out the vote back in, like, 2010 for it. And, I mean, literally one of those, like, you know, go stay at a friend's house and spend 2 weeks ringing doorbells telling people vote for Obamacare. Oh, she's upset. She could almost vote Republican this time, to give you an example. And this is someone who's so bleeding heart liberal that, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, it's absolutely disastrous. I mean, I said at the time that it was, here's a guy that supposedly had Bob Wolf whispering in his ear throughout the campaign, telling him how bad the mortgage crisis was going to affect this country, and the impact it was going to have on the banks, and the ancillary effects that it was going to have. You know, and in some book, and I was trying to recollect as I was preparing for today's show what that book was that I read. You know, he had his finger on the trigger of that, and yet this was what they came out with as their initial proposal. Understand, it was not really the stimulus. The stimulus, they basically handed over that to congressional leadership, and Congress had taken everything that they had on the table, every little earmark, every little wish list item they had, stuffed it in there, and understand that 2/3 of that money went directly to the states. 2/3. So absolutely nothing was done. The Obama administration then spent the next year and a half trying to garner votes. And, you know, we can talk about the kickback in Louisiana and the deal that was done in Nebraska.
Uncle Bob,
Yeah.
It's politics.
Well, it's just bullshit. It's more than politics. It's bad politics.
All right,
Really, really bad.
so let's talk implications of politics from China and how they're impacting commodities. Not sure if you've noticed, but this thing we put in our car has gotten cheaper.
Well, and it continues to get cheaper tonight, Jack. In fact, right now, I have a live quote. It's off $1.70. It's at 64.32 right now, and I believe it's lower.
Nice. So, where do you see it going? I have my own, and I'm gonna rattle them off. But where do you see it going first?
I mean, I am not a crude expert. I follow it. I read this stuff. I hear 55 to 60 to 55 is where they think some type of bottom is, but I'm not sure if that's the case.
I'm going to say that's the trading range. I think the bottom is about 42.
Wow. The interesting thing was that OPEC decided, and I think that was that Wednesday, or that was Thursday.
Yeah.
Their meeting it was on Thanksgiving.
It came out Thursday, yeah, during our Turkey Day.
Right, and they basically said, well, we're not cutting. But of course, cuts in OPEC are the big lie anyway, because nobody really.
Well, they're overproducing. They're overproducing their upper limit, and their upper limit is 1 million above what they say themselves that they believe the market demand is. So they're producing 1 million plus a day above what they believe the market is demanding, which is basically Libya, right? In production terms, it's offline. Right. And they're just keeping the hammer down. They're going for market share. The last time we had market share gain like this. All right, so let's back up. Saudi Arabia and OPEC's in charge of oil, right? In the 70s. We had those scares. We had the reductions. Then around 8...
Wow, remember that, Jack?
Oh, I do. I do. And so then early 80s, they realized that the whole world is slowing down economically speaking, and they gave up market share. And OPEC gave up significant market share during that window. After it bottomed, it took about 15 years for them to get back their market share. 15 years. All right, the guy who is running the oil in Saudi Arabia, I believe, is still the same guy from back then. They're not going to make the same mistakes they made last time. They're not going to take a 15-year hit to volume sales, right? And what's interesting is they did not gain back the volume buyers until the bottom of crude oil with the crushing of the communists. Basically when they took crude to $10.30 or so, right? Mm-hmm. That is when Saudi Arabia, in essence, regained its prior market share from 15 years prior than that. Okay, so it took the destruction of oil for them to regain market share, something they've held and grown since then. They're not giving up market share. They'll take any price from any barrel, and I don't think that the traders, per se, have that in context. So that's why I'm saying 42 is a more realistic number. I think they need to take it down to scare the crap out of people for a while.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, let me put a couple of facts, because I know that you're far more knowledgeable in this area than I am. But a couple of the things that I have read recently, of course, the headline stuff is, well, they want to screw Russia and Iran. I'm not so sure that that's the case. But the interesting thing was a chart that was put out today, and it was put out a few different times, that showed basically the net cost per barrel of oil in various regions. In Saudi Arabia, it said that it was $10 versus, say, 70, 60 to 80, I think they said, in shale, and
sure.
And I think the next lowest was Venezuela, which was, I think, about $25.
Okay.
So and the other interesting thing, and I just want before you go off because I know you're very knowledgeable in the area, was the thought is, and this was put forward by some people that I have some respect for, was that the Saudis are buying the ISIS oil for $20 a barrel, and then selling it, and so they're willing to sell it for $50 a barrel.
I
don't know if it's pure speculation.
You know, I'm not going to argue that one. It wouldn't shock me at all, at any level, to find out that Syrian and Iraqi oil was routed through Saudi sale channels. That would not surprise me in the slightest. Here's my thoughts. The most obvious person who feels the most pain the quickest, if you hold oil here, take it lower. Brazil. Absolutely screwed. Okay? Brazil was talking about adding a couple of million barrels a day of capacity, basically, in the next 5 years. They have all of these super large offshore fields.
Well, they cost enormous dollars.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're talking about $100 million holes in the ground, you know, 6,000 feet underwater, and then you go down a couple of miles, right? It's the most expensive work on the planet.
Well, if you've noticed, looking at the equities, those offshore drillers are the ones just getting taken.
Well, yes. I mean, think about this. Statoil, which is a European company, drilling offshore Africa where they can't freaking miss these days, okay, said that they are going to pay their offshore drilling company that they leased a drilling rig from $350 million to keep their fucking boat, right? Because they had it leased until 2017, and they're just like, hell no. Hell no, just take the damn boat back, and here's $350 million, and go lease it again. Which tells you that it probably isn't going to get leased soon. Because they would have subleased it, I'd imagine, if they could.
They're just taking their time, yeah.
And this is also saying that realistically, they're not going to come back and drill offshore Africa in the next 2 to 3 years, even if oil came back, right? You don't eat $350 million to not do something. Unless you're throwing in your cards and walking away from that table for now.
Precisely.
And so I think we're going to see more of that. And I think Brazil is a poster child for that. And here's another one. Kashagan, right? Kashagan, I don't know how you pronounce that damn place. It's that giant oil field that has the sulfur in it that burns through the pipes. And so it was supposed to have been a $13 billion project. It's now cost about $50 billion. They're looking at another $5 to $6 billion to replace the pipeline they just put in because it doesn't handle what they said it would very well. And there's 300,000 barrels a day offline currently, but it's supposed to produce 1.5 million barrels. 1 million, 1.3, 1.5, in that range. Who in their right mind is going to sink any more money into that field?
It's gonna. We have a. I mean, even if you looked at Exxon, which is an incredibly well-run, very conservatively run company. I mean, it was down 5.5% on Friday in a shortened session.
Yeah.
I mean, that's big. After it's already taken some hits.
Oh, and they have a buyer who buys like $300 million of their stock every day, and they like light a match to it, right?
Right.
You know, and you know, maybe that guy didn't show up somehow on Friday, and that's how that happened. But you know, realistically, we're at what I would call the end of the super cycle. You have China, who is not going to be building empty cities going forward. They don't need to. You have India, which is not showing signs of developing itself at the pace necessary to pick up the slack for China's slowdown at this time. So realistically, India probably is going to be an infrastructural build-out the next big cycle, right? That means that, take a look at iron ore. It's now at basically, I don't remember the last time it traded this low. It's in the 60s.
And copper's getting clubbed. Like
I was going to say, isn't copper a redheaded stepchild at Christmas right now?
Oh, it's kind of retained its ugliness. It's got ugly.
Hey, there's a cranky bastard. Welcome.
Well, as soon as Bob says,
I can't hear him.
As soon as he says ugliness, then it's there. But you guys are stuck with my freaking cell phone since my computer died.
Hey, you're looking good, and you only have 15 minutes. So what can you tell us about, besides the fact that owning gold is a really bad investment unless you want to compare it to owning oil, which might be a worse one?
Hey, listen, I'm more interested to see how guys like Venezuela and Russia do with debt that was priced in at 85 to 90 bucks a barrel, dealing with a sudden 65 bucks a barrel. Yeah. I think that's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Jack, I'm hearing you. I am not hearing Sapien.
Oh, interesting. I hear him fine. So
I'm not seeing his. I'm not seeing the sound on his thing.
Hit F5. Hit F5.
You're number one with me too.
All right. I see the little green bars, Uncle Bob. So hit F5 and cycle the room. See if it fixes for you.
Yeah, there's not much I can do. I just stopped.
Whoa, there he went. You both went. Oh, that's really cute, guys. Middle of the show, both my co-host and my guest hit the button and take themselves out of the room. So in a few moments, they should be back. It appears that my Patriots don't know how to score if their life freaking depended on it. Just missed a kick. So, hey, I'm talking sports over here, Uncle Bob. Yeah. All right, you're both back.
Now I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, guys.
Hey.
How are you,
So, guys,
Good.
what do you think about what oil's going to do to Venezuela? Because they are going to be squeezed hard down here.
So talking to some of the guys who know more about the sector than I do, they're saying that if these sub-70 levels hold through March, Venezuela's in deep doo-doo, and IMF is going to have to come in and kick in some money. There's no way they can afford the debt that they have with oil being so cheap. So it'll be interesting. But I will tell you, the IMF is looking at it really, really carefully.
Okay. Another one is Russia, which has 130 billion, I believe, to roll over next year, something like that.
It'll be.
How do you roll over 130 billion when you're not allowed to access the world's capital markets, and you're now running sub budgets?
Well, they got 100 guys there with 33% of Russia's net worth. Maybe they could chip in a few bucks.
As long as they're paying for it in rubles.
Rubles
or is that the rubble? Sorry.
Rubble. I like that, the rubble.
Last quote I saw go by was a 51.2. It hit 50 for the first time ever on Friday. So that thing's just clipping along at a couple of % a day.
Yeah, that's right. When my daughter was in Russia, not this past summer, but the summer before.
32.
Number one. It was 30. I think it was like 33 ruble to the dollar. Now it's 52 ruble to the dollar. Life just got real expensive for the burgeoning upper class and the kids who like to party.
So the Russian middle class just got stepped on.
What there was of it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is it? 115 people in Russia control 35% of the country.
Yeah, something like it's 35% of the wealth of the country. That's correct.
Okay. So,
So,
hey,
I mean,
is there anything you can talk about in your side of the world at this moment?
there's nothing going on in my world to the side of the world at the moment.
All right. So, what can you
No,
talk
no.
about that you know about that you can talk about?
Well, the one thing I can't talk about because it is public, and it's interesting. None of the news guys picked up on it. So
Did
at
you
the
make
end
another
of
CEO cry?
no, I haven't, but I'm working on it.
All right.
But the Dodd-Frank, the risk retention and qualified residential mortgage final rules came out in late October. A week or so before Thanksgiving, the advocacy group for the collateralized loan obligation group put in notice that they were going to sue the SEC for making the rules capricious. So we'll see what happens with that.
All right. So how do you see
So
that?
it's the first lawsuit. It's the first lawsuit, and the first time is always special.
Yes. Yes, first times are always special. Uncle Bob.
Yes, sir.
So you were leveraged, what was it, 10 to 1 in silver? Is that right? Going into this?
Not me. Not I. I kind of stay away from the precious metals complex. I don't know enough about it. I have never got. I shouldn't say that. I played it like 3 different times in the last 4 years.
All right.
Short days.
So what is silver at right now?
I don't even. Let me just check.
I saw a number go by.
Gold I see right now is 1151. Let's see what silver is. Silver I have 1149 or 11. I'm sorry, 1183.
1183. How much is that down?
No. I'm sorry. Excuse me. 1483.
Down how much?
No, I have it. I have it slightly up right now in front of me. I mean, how much is it down over the last week? I couldn't tell you. I don't have that on my charts. My charts aren't set up that way.
Okay.
I can pull it up somewhere else here.
There was people calling out it being significantly lower, so so when the market closed, Uncle Bob,
Yeah.
it was around 16 and a quarter. So it's down. Go ahead.
Well, what I see just in the silver trust, which is just easy to track, I see it off 6.5% right now.
Okay.
In 1 day.
I think it may have even hit more than that. Yeah, no, it appears to have done like a double-digit drop, potentially, max percent run.
Could have been the widows and orphans that are still holding it, huh?
Exactly. So, gentlemen, what is the most interesting thing happening in the market right now?
Metals just getting creamed. I mean, it seems to me that I mean, again, I read some stuff this weekend about Europe facing more deflationary numbers and potentially real problems.
Their banks don't. Their banks are admitting that they plugged in fake numbers. Didn't the Royal Bank of tight-ass Scots do that?
Hey! Now don't call them tight ass. They're owned by the Bank of England. But yeah, they admitted they made some calculation errors. They didn't say that, I'm sure it was, in the Great Rush and all those little numbers that are bouncing around, it might have been a little bit confusing. There was, they clearly state that there was no maliciousness or intent to deceive. That'll be up to the regulators to decide. But yeah, RBFs RBS right after. I mean, and this comes on the
Aren't they
heels.
real close to settling with you? I'm sorry, you're not allowed to talk about that. I'll shut up.
And the answer is no. They're not. They have. But they did settle with their regulators on an IT mess up in October to the tune of $60 million. RBS has had so many problems, with just their systems, their people leaving. And the other news that came out recently from RBS's shop that hit the press is RBS initially said that they were going to downsize their asset-backed security and mortgage-backed security books by 2/3. They've since changed their mind and they're closing it down completely. So that's going to be about 6,000 professionals worldwide out of work. So they're essentially exiting the asset-backed securities market as it relates into the United States.
Weren't they the first one to declare pain in was it 07? February?
No, the first one was SocGen.
Was it?
Yes, SocGen was the first.
I thought HSBC was the first one to say that they were writing shit down because it wasn't good.
SocGen was the HSBC and SocGen were pretty close, and then UBS had quite a bit of that as well.
Well, and then Bear couldn't get a quote, and that's when things got fun.
With Bear. As you can tell, I'm doing this from the kitchen. Their problem was they couldn't roll their funding. Nobody would give them a dime.
Love you, but not that much.
Wait. Nobody loved Bear. Even people who worked at Bear didn't love Bear.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I worked at Bear for 4 years, and besides being a crucible in which the hammer earned his steel,
right.
It sucked.
Well,
it really sucked.
Here during the peak of the events, I daily would call a friend of mine who was trading a desk in Beverly Hills for a Goldman subsidiary equivalency. I'll just put it in those terms.
Okay.
He was a former Bear trader, and he'd been NYSE. His brother worked at Lehman on the CDS desk. So I would call him and ask him to call his brother for a CDS quote on Lehman. And he's like, dude, we don't make market in ourselves. And we're like, yeah, but we still want to know what your quote is. and this became like the worst joke, especially during the 6-month fall, right? So during the summer,
right.
Every day I'd just be like, okay, I want my Lehman quote, and he goes, hold on, and he'd call his brother, and his brother would just go, fuck you guys, we're 600 by 6.5, go to hell. And that just became our daily thing, as we'd call him for a quote on himself.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody liked Lehman, nobody liked Bear. Although the insight, I mean, you read Larry McDonald's book, and he thinks of Lehman as this great place to work, which amazes me because there's so many other stories out there not, but I think it's more nostalgia than reality. But yeah, I mean, but what you are seeing is you're seeing RBS retract. And you're starting to see things. People are just kind of giving up. Like, all right, we just don't see the mortgage-backed security, the private label mortgage-backed security coming back in any way, shape, or form.
If it ever happens, we'll buy in a fresh buy at this point. No one's going to keep their infrastructure around at zero.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, you have the guys at Redwood doing the Sequoia trusts. They're trying to get out 2 or 3 a year. But the size of these deals are sub $500 million, which is like, so what? That
was a rounding error when you used to cause trouble.
Yeah, pretty much. We wouldn't even consider that material. And hell, if you're Bear Stearns, you could just resell that $500 billion to another trust if they went bad. Oops, that's never been proven.
Wait, That has not been in a court of law yet, nor will it see the light of day to see a court of law.
Well, I mean, it would be up to the DOJ or the SEC to prosecute that, and so far they haven't.
That
so
statute of limitations thing.
On criminal, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's 7 years, but I think let's see, we're 2014. If they're not going to if they don't do it this year, I can't see them doing it. Maybe they might be able to get it to 2008, but I doubt it. And you know, with DOJ being the mess it's in, they're not really interested in going after individuals. So I mean that's yeah, Uncle Bob.
I said, taking Timmy's word for it, that it would just be so destructive to the underlying system. You know, so that's why DOJ backed off. At least that's all the word I get.
You know, you're talking about two individuals, you know, whose names are all over the press. One of which is working at Merrill as the head of their the fixed income book. So, you know, good job, Bank of America, for hiring this guy. But I don't. But it wouldn't be that disruptive. I mean, the short of it is that the private label mortgage-backed securities market is dead. You know, if it's not agency or Ginnie, you know, it's going portfolio because right now everybody has balance sheet to hold these bigger mortgages. But if you're even slightly down the mortgage credit curve, it becomes very expensive to get a mortgage because whoever's going to take it's going to hold it on their books.
Okay. So we've become a covered call. I mean, a covered market at one level.
I mean, if you make the assumption that any bank that's TBTF will automatically be bailed out by the government, yes, but technically no.
Okay.
So I mean, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek yes, but not really, because these loans are being held in some banks as an investment. They're not being securitized and sold out to investors. Because I mean, think about it. You're selling, you know, you're funding at really ridiculously low rates. You're putting mortgages on your books at 3.5%, 4%. You know, that excess spread is real money in size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even I could do that math. Even I could do that math.
You can do that
math? Even I can do that.
Uncle Bob, what do you got? We're into that bonus time already. So what you got before we wind it up or find a new topic to yell at each other about?
The only thing I want to throw in there is that the season for 2016 candidates is upon us. And it is already to my mind, in full flush, especially in the Republican Party, where it is far less sorted out than the quote-unquote coronation that's going to be given to Hillary in the Democratic Party, or at least maybe.
Bob, we just went through 2014, which was, just as ugly as 2012. Do we really have to talk about 2016? It's making me cry.
I'm just mentioning it because they are in full force already, and the visits have begun. All the staffs have been hired, and thank God, Carly Fiorina has hired people.
Come to the rescue.
She hasn't yet settled her debt in California. She owes people $500,000, but she's gonna run. She couldn't run a company. But hell, why not?
Hey, if Trump can do it, if Herman Cain can do it, Carly can do it.
Neither of those clowns was really running. You and I both know that.
All right, gentlemen, on that note, I want to thank everyone for watching us. This has been the BTFDtv semi-half-hour macro tourist hour show. Look forward to some new things we have in development that I'm not going to talk about at this moment, but know that some new shows are being developed. I want to thank everyone out there for watching us, and we'll be back again next weekend. Peace, and stay safe out there. Oh, and don't leverage silver, at least not in the wrong direction.
I'm going long oil. Don't worry, I'm good.
Margin calls are coming.
On that note, gentlemen, peace.